You didn't do anything wrong, but you also didn't make her feel intrigued. You were kind, on time, always available when needed, and you thought that would make her appreciate you. But the truth is, the more predictable you are, the easier you are to forget. In a world where nice guys are as common as morning coffee, what truly sets you apart isn't smooth flirting. It's a presence built on quiet strength. Women aren't always drawn to what's logical. They're attracted to what lingers in their mind. A man who doesn't try to be noticed, yet whose silence they can't ignore. This video won't teach you how to play games. It will teach you how to own yourself and let attraction arise from the freedom you embody, not through words, but in how you walk away, disappear, and return at just the right moment. Today, I'll share with you 5 Machiavellian rules, not to manipulate anyone, but to stop losing yourself. Are you ready? Let's begin. Rule number 1. Become the man she can't predict. Joe, a friend of mine from San Francisco, is the kind of guy most women would describe as a total catch. He's polite, thoughtful, always texts on time, and never forgets a good night message. On paper, he's everything a woman could ask for. But here's the catch. Women never stick around. One day, he told me, with genuine confusion, I sent her a good morning a text for 62 days straight. Didn't miss a single day. And then, she just stopped replying. I smiled and said, "Man, that's not love. That's public transportation." The truth is, attraction doesn't bloom in routine. It grows in the unknown. Predictability is comforting, but comfort isn't what creates desire. Desire is born from curiosity, from the need to figure someone out. And when everything about you is on display, easy to predict, there's nothing left to wonder about. You become a solved puzzle, and once the puzzle is solved, it's put away. Women, like most people, are not intrigued by what they already understand. They are pulled toward what feels just out of reach. Not because they're playing games, but because the human mind is wired to chase mystery, not certainty. You don't have to be cold or fake a hard-to-get act, but if you're always available, always responsive, always predictable, you're not building connection. You're slowly fading into the background. If she knows exactly when you'll text, how you'll respond, and that you'll always be there no matter what, then you stop being a person in her eyes. You become a routine, an app she no longer feels excited to open. And like any other app, eventually she silences you. So here's a shift in thinking. Don't be the guy who replies the second his phone lights up. Let there be space. Let her wonder. If she stops texting first, don't panic. Go live. Read a book, chase a goal, lift something heavy. Grow yourself. The man who doesn't chase is not always distant. He's simply occupied with his purpose. Machiavelli put it well. People don't respect what they fully understand. They respect what they cannot control. When you're no longer always present, you start to become intriguing again. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can say is nothing at all. Rule number 2. Show up rarely, but with value. These days, social media feels more like a never-ending talent show than a place to connect. Everyone's performing, sharing their morning coffee, their post-run sweat, and carefully filtered captions about finding meaning in a cloudy Tuesday. The problem? The more people try to stand out by showing everything, the more invisible they become. I know a guy in Seattle like that. His Instagram is like a 24/7 personal brand campaign. 6 stories a day, latte art, Spotify playlists. even a proud photo of his phone charging. No joke. And what did it get him? A block from the girl he liked. Her reason was brutally honest. You wear out my brain. In a world oversaturated with images and endless scrolling, what stands out isn't more noise, it's intentional quiet. We're not drawn to what's always there. We're drawn to what leaves space for curiosity. A person who appears just enough to spark interest, then slips out of view, leaves behind a kind of mystery that demands attention. Social media shouldn't be a megaphone for your existence. It should be a spotlight, used with precision. One thoughtful image, one honest moment, one caption that suggests depth instead of shouting for it, like offline for clarity. Then nothing, no follow-up. Let the silence carry weight. She doesn't need confirmation that you're doing okay. She needs to ask herself why you seem to be thriving quietly, without needing to explain it. If Machiavelli were navigating Instagram today, he'd probably say something like, "True influence doesn't announce itself. It lets others do the wondering." Choosing when to be seen is a form of control, of presence, of absence, and of intrigue. You don't need to showcase your whole life. Let your focus, your small wins, and your stillness speak louder than daily uploads. Real attraction isn't about being constantly visible. It's about being missed when you're not. Rule number 3, don't explain. Don't seek to be understood. One evening in Austin, the amber light of the bar spilled gently across her shoulder as she leaned in, eyes narrowing with a half-serious smirk. "How many girls have you said that to?" she asked, teasing but testing. I didn't flinch. I didn't scramble to explain or swear innocence. I simply smiled and said, "I don't say much." She laughed, the tension melted, and the question disappeared, as if it never needed an answer. Most men, in that moment, would have tried to convince her. They would have launched into a speech about how she's different, how they're not like other guys, how their intentions are pure. But the moment you try to convince someone of your worth, you've already handed them power. You're no longer a man standing on equal ground. You're a defendant in a courtroom she never agreed to hold. And the irony is, no amount of explanation makes you more trustworthy. It makes you look insecure. Attraction doesn't thrive on explanation. It thrives on self-possession. A man who's grounded doesn't rush to fix misunderstandings, not because he's dismissive, but because he understands that silence can be stronger than reassurance. That stillness can say more than defense ever could. He knows that not every question deserves an answer, and not every doubt needs soothing. There's something powerful about being misread and remaining calm. It shows strength. It shows control. It tells her, without a word, that your value doesn't fluctuate based on her interpretation. Machiavelli would have called it strategic ambiguity. To let others wonder, to leave space for them to interpret, is to hold the upper hand. It's a kind of invisible gravity, drawing them in, not because of what you reveal, but because of what you withhold. And in that mystery, you become unforgettable. Not by being loud, not by being perfect, but by being composed when most men would crumble. She doesn't remember the guy who explained himself. She remembers the one who didn't need to. Rule number 4. Be emotionally selective, not emotionally controlled. I once saw something that was both hilarious and a little heartbreaking. A guy in Boston, after being left on scene for 7 hours by the girl he liked, decided to pour his soul into a voice message. Not just any message, a 4.5-minute monologue with a sad piano track in the background, his voice trembling like he was delivering his final words. He talked about feeling abandoned, about how he hated being ignored, and even threw in some childhood trauma about being forced to eat vegetables. She didn't reply, but I'd bet money she laughed. That wasn't romance. That was emotional chaos. And if there's one thing that kills attraction instantly, it's a man who lets someone else's silence control his emotions. She stops texting, and you feel rejected. She says something vague, and you spiral into analysis. One lukewarm reply from her, and suddenly you're losing sleep, wondering what it meant. At that point, you're not showing depth, you're showing dependency. You've stopped being yourself. You've become a mirror of her moods. Worse, you've given her power she never asked for, the ability to control how you feel. And women pick up on that instantly. They may not say it out loud, but they know when a man is too emotionally reactive, when every emoji, every delay, every dot at the end of a sentence sends him into emotional tailspin. That's when their interest starts to fade, not because they're cruel, but because they're wired to be drawn to stability, not volatility. You're allowed to care, but care with strength, not desperation. Message her when you genuinely have something to say. Compliment her when it comes from a real place, not as a strategy to win her back. And if she pulls away, don't panic. Get to work. Move your body. Sharpen your mind. Invest in yourself. Attraction isn't about losing yourself in emotion. It's about having the capacity to feel deeply while still remaining grounded. Love doesn't have to consume you. It just has to meet you at the right time. And when you understand that, you become the kind of man a woman never forgets. Rule number 5, focus on building yourself, not chasing anyone. There are really just 2 types of men in this world. One is sitting on his couch at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday, sending a text that says, "I miss you," hoping for a reply that makes him feel seen. The other, at that exact same moment, is in a meeting with business partners, finalizing the launch of his second gym in Texas. And let's be honest, you already know which one gets more texts, more attention, more pull. Women aren't drawn to nice and available. That's not what keeps them up at night. They're pulled toward a man with motion, a man who's going somewhere, building something, living for more than just being liked. It's not because they're shallow or materialistic. It's because purpose is magnetic. Passion is irresistible. When a man is on a mission, his energy changes. It's the kind of energy that makes others want to come closer, just to feel a piece of it. If you find yourself pretending to be cool, pretending to be busy, faking detachment, then what you're really revealing is the absence of something meaningful in your life. You don't need to act aloof. You need to be occupied, genuinely, with a project, a goal, a path that matters to you. Maybe it's a business you're building, a new skill you're mastering, or a personal challenge that pushes you to grow. Whatever it is, let it consume your attention, because when it does, everything else starts to fall into place. A man with real purpose doesn't need to chase validation. He doesn't speak just to fill silence. His words are fewer, but they land with weight. His quiet moments don't feel like distance. They feel like depth. He moves with certainty, not because he's in a rush, but because he's aligned with where he's headed. While the world scrambles, he walks with intention. If Machiavelli had Instagram, he might say, "Women don't chase men, but they notice the ones who don't even glance their way because they're too focused on something greater." That's not strategy. That's presence. That's what it means to be truly attractive. When you're building your life with vision and fire, you no longer need to ask for attention. The right woman will come closer, not because you pulled her, but because you didn't need to. Conclusion: power doesn't chase, it draws people in. The most important thing to remember after all of these rules is this: you don't need to pretend to be attractive. None of these strategies are about becoming someone else. They're meant to help you remember the core of a man with value, a man who chose himself before anyone else had the chance to. Women are not drawn to performance. They're pulled in by authentic presence. By someone who isn't trying too hard to be accepted, who doesn't need to score points, who doesn't have to be right all the time, yet still radiates a kind of pull that demands attention. Not because he shouts, but because he's quiet, with depth. Maybe she won't choose you. Maybe you do everything right, and she still walks away. But that doesn't mean you lost, because you're not living to be chosen. You're living to grow yourself, to walk your path. And if someone wants to walk alongside you, they'll step in on their own. You won't have to beg them to stay. In truth, the most attractive man isn't the one who makes people like him. He's the one who makes people wonder why they keep thinking about him. Why does he seem so grounded? Why, when everything around is chaotic, does he keep walking calmly, as if he knows something others don't? That's power, a quiet kind of power. It doesn't chase, it doesn't explain, it doesn't fear, it doesn't seek attention, because even its absence is loud enough to pull others in. If you understand that, then you've already won, not just in the game of love, but in the bigger game, the game of mastering yourself. And when you've become the one in control, you don't need to chase anyone. You walk. They'll find their way to you. If this video made you reflect, leave a comment. It doesn't have to be long, just a few words, as long as it's honest. And if you have a friend, the one who keeps texting "good morning" us every day and gets nothing in return, send them this video. Because sometimes, the best way to be loved is to learn how not to beg for it.